So it's an honor to introduce our guest tonight, baseball legend Joe Girardi. All right.
Well, I'm going to start off by answering that question, right?
Go.
We had a nutritionist. They hired a nutritionist. The nutritionist banned the donuts and the ice cream, and I got blamed. And I used to bring donuts into the guys on Sundays. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
And that story has stuck with you for a long time. I mean,
Yes, it has.
yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to keep honoring you here.
Okay.
So Joe's journey is defined by excellence, spanning many decades in Major League Baseball. He's also known for his character off the field. But as a catcher, Joe won 3 World Series titles with the Yankees. He then went on and earned National League Manager of the Year. And then he managed the New York Yankees to their 27th World Series championship. And you're chomping at the bit over there. Did you know he's been married to his wife, Kim, for 36 years, I think?
Correct.
And he has 3 young adult children. Joe knows what it takes to reach the pinnacle of success, famously noting that to truly understand the drive to win, you have to get to the top to see how great it is up there. So let's go.
All right, let's go.
All right, Joe Girardi. All right, so we're going to talk baseball, but we're also going to talk about what it is to be a leader off the field just the same. Okay. Let's start at the beginning. You were born in East Peoria, Illinois. You're one of 5 kids in a Catholic family.
Correct.
So what was important to your parents in raising the kids, and how did sports fit into that?
Education, faith, family, and sports. But the others came first. If we didn't get good grades, we weren't allowed to play sports. I was an altar boy through 8th grade. Had a paper route until 8th grade. But I grew up in a great family. It was a family where very competitive. You know, I had 2 older brothers, an older sister, and a younger brother. My father, I followed my father around wherever he went. If he was walking and he stopped, I ran into him. I traveled. He was a salesman. He worked 3 jobs. I would ride in the car and listen to Cub games. So I was a huge Cubs fan, listening to Jack Brickhouse and Lou Boudreau. And I had a dream, and I'm fortunate that I got to achieve my dream. My dream was to play for the Chicago Cubs, and I got to do that.
After high school, you went on to catch at Northwestern. Sidebar, I know you met Andrew Wong here.
I did. There's a lot of... How many Northwestern people are in here? There's a few, right?
I see one back there, one here. Go Wildcats.
Go Cats.
So Andrew's going to be a pitcher at Northwestern next year, just finishing up from his senior year at Fairfield Prep. And he is a Stanford native, and his mom, Ginny, was who kicked our evening off as advisory board chair. So go Wildcats. Okay, but in Evanston.
Yes.
Okay, so you played D1 baseball. You were president of the ATO House your freshman year.
Okay, that's not true either.
Okay. Oh.
See, this is the problem with Google.
I fact-checked.
I joined the ATO House my sophomore year, and then my junior year I moved out. It was too loud for me.
Okay. That sounds, okay. But you did major in industrial engineering.
I did do that, yes.
You did find faith.
Yes, we had faith, but I even found more.
You met your wife.
I sure did.
So this feels like a really full and rich time. And yet, you've spoken publicly that you lost your mom during that time too. So
I did.
What stands out to you when you look back, on 20-year-old Joe?
So when I was a freshman in high school, my mother was diagnosed with cancer and given 3 to 6 months to live. It was very difficult. You know, as I said, I had 2 older brothers, an older sister, and a younger brother. And she was a fighter, tough, tiny Italian woman, 5'1", a child psychologist. Education was the most important thing in our family. I can remember her saying at times that, I'm just went through her chemo and just don't let me take too many of these pills because, I got to get through this. And she would get sick. But we had a great community that really helped us out. There were times they would take me in, my brothers in. There was a pretty strong Lebanese contingent in Peoria, Illinois. They used to bring us food all the time. So through all this, through high school, my mom kept fighting, and she kept working. She never stopped working. And went to college, and my sophomore year, I went out after the season and played in the Cape Cod League, and I got a call that Mom wasn't going to make it. So, jumped in my Ford Tempo. It was red, for all you people that remember that. Got stopped going 100 miles an hour because I was trying to get home, and I was following someone else who was going 100, right? And the policeman said, "Stay here, I'm going to get him, and then I'll come back for you," right? I didn't move. He came back, and he said, "Why were you going so fast?" I said, "My mom's going to die, and I need to get home." And he let me go. He just said, "Slow down." I was in Pennsylvania. That's quite a state to drive through, too. There's a lot there to see. Why there'd ever be a policeman on the road, who cares how fast you're going through? But she passed, and I made it home to see her take her last breath. She couldn't talk, but I saw her take her last breath. And it was very difficult. I stayed home. I was playing for the Katua Kettleers until through the funeral, and I went right back the next day. They told me, "Go back. You need to go play." I went and played, and teammates were great, but what stuck to me was my mom wanted to see three things. She wanted to see her son John get into med school. She wanted to see her son George get into med school. And she wanted to see my sister graduate from college. Those all happened in the month of May. She passed away in June. She had faith. She had struggles, but she had faith, and she knew it was time to go home. I prefer the ATO stuff better. But I learned about faith because she told us she had a vision that Jesus' arms were open. So you can see what she meant to her family. That was 1984. How many years is that? 42 years. And I still cry telling the story today. But she taught us about faith, right? And my mother and father were very giving. We were a middle-class family, 5 kids. My dad worked 3 jobs. I worked with him. He gave me my first $100 bill. He was a salesman. He tended bar at night, and he would lay bricks on the weekends. And I was 7 years old, and I was carrying the bricks and mixing the mud, and I was basically the laborer. And he gave me $100, and I never forgot it. So he taught me 2 really important lessons: the value of $1 when you work, and always finish the job. No matter what, finish your job. And I've lived by what my parents left inside of me.
Thank you for sharing that. That feels really important. Thank you. Back to baseball for a sec.
That's easier.
So after Northwestern, you were drafted by the Cubs, and so you became somewhat of a hometown hero in Chicago. Though, like my husband, a Chicago kid, he's like, Peoria isn't exactly next to Chicago.
It's halfway in between Chicago and St. Louis.
From his telling as a Chicago kid, like, if you won the spelling bee in your elementary school, you got to go to Peoria for the championships.
We had other things. We had Caterpillar there.
But after the Cubs, you played for the Rockies, and then you ended up at the Yankees. And with the Yankees, I'm sure there were lots of stellar moments, but a couple, like you got the opportunity to catch a no-hitter for Dwight Gooden and then a perfect game for David Cohn. So there's only been 24 perfect games in Major League Baseball history. This is a rare moment. He says that he only shook you off one time, and that was in the ninth. So, I'd love to hear about what you brought to that moment to create that trust between you and that sense of knowing, and if there's anything those of us who are part of a team could take from that.
I think what I brought for David was stability. David was emotional, and we used to joke, David had to snap on someone before every game, whether it was me, the strength coach, the trainer, another player. He just had to get that emotion. And I never let his emotion affect me. I actually, at times, would laugh at him. He didn't see me laughing. But there was a time I warmed him up in the bullpen, and I would go down the last 5 or 6 minutes, and you might catch 15 pitches. They usually warm up with about 35. And he kicked me out after 2. I'm like, what? He goes, I don't want you to see what I have today. There was a couple other words with that. And I think he went 7 innings. And there was another time I would walk out to the mound, and I remember he was, all of a sudden, he kind of lost the strike zone. And I said, Coney, and he's like, just shut the F up and get back there and catch, right? And I turn around and laugh, right? Because I knew his heart. I knew that there was an intensity in there and that he expected perfection from himself. And I never let it bother me. So I've always said, in the heat of the moment, I never take it personal. So, as a manager, I'd walk out to the mound and take someone out, and they would be mad. And the media would say, well, he showed you up. I said, no, he'd show me up. He wanted to stay in the game. Do you want him looking to come out of the game, right? So for me, if it happens 2 days later and we're in the clubhouse, that's a different story. But we just had a connection because he was the emotional one and I was the non-emotional one. And I could just do my job, and we connected on pitch selection. And it was a joy for me because he was so creative. And I'm not a creative person by nature, but you could be creative with him on the pitch selection and the different arm angles, and it made it a blast, and we had a lot of fun doing it.
And catchers are often leaders, on the field, which is what makes them good managers. What do you think developed in you behind the plate that led to you being a very effective manager?
It's interesting. I just answered this question yesterday. I was doing the Joe Torre documentary, and what it is, I think it's a couple things. We're the only person that sees everybody, and everybody sees you, right? Everything that you do, how hard you work, your intensity, they're always looking at you. The other thing is, I managed games backwards when I was a player, knowing, okay, I got this guy in the bullpen tonight, I got this guy in the bullpen, I got to get 6 innings out of my starter. Or I only have these 2 guys, I got to get 7. So the whole time you're managing. And you're managing knowing that the other team, what they like to do, they like to hit and run, they like to bunt, they're a patient team. You have to know all these sequencing for pitches. Guys take first pitch curveball, start them with a curveball. It's a free start. I had a good memorization skills, so I could memorize counts and what guys hit in certain counts and what pitches they liked. And you're managing the game back there. And I think it prepares us to manage in life because that's what you have to do. You have to take all the information that you have in your head and make the best possible decision. Here's the thing about being in a leadership role and making decisions. You can take all the information you have and make the best possible decision, and it doesn't work because there's a human element. And as I was just discussing earlier, I was talking about, some other managers, I said, people forget that the other team's trying to win too. right? Like they think that everything you do is either going to be right or wrong, and the other team had nothing to do with it. They got a lot to do with it, right? And I happen to get involved in this dumb game where we play like 162 games, 180 days. And it's the only game you can do everything right and not be successful at times. You can hit a ball 110 miles an hour and it's an out. And you're like, son of a buck. But then you can hit a ball 40 miles an hour and it dribbles down the third baseline and it's a hit. Now the pitcher's mad. He did exactly what he wanted to do. He kept the ball on the ground and induced weak contact, but it was so weak it ended up being a hit. So I apologized to my son, Dante. I said, I'm sorry I put you in this game. I wish I could have put you in a game that there was more success. But it builds character, and it builds a toughness, and it builds a team because you rely on each other to get through tough times.
It's really interesting. I mean, people do know that about baseball, but it was interesting for me preparing for this and kind of looking at your, like, let's call it body of work in your baseball career, because there were like a lot of reasons for parades and plaques and celebration, but there were also these moments like that really called for some grit and some openness to what was next and kind of faith. Like one that came to mind when I was reading about you was you were manager of the Marlins. That was your first job.
This is a talent now. Listen to this.
Okay, so it was like there was, it was a low-paid team with young, low expectations, and this guy in his first year wins National League Manager of the Year. It's pretty amazing.
But
and in that same season, ownership lets him go.
I got fired. 2 days after the season, I called my favorite coach and manager of all time, Don Zimmer. I was with Don Zimmer 10 of my first 11 years in the big leagues, whether he was the manager, the bench coach, or the bench coach. He was the bench coach in Colorado. I went there. He was the bench coach in New York. I went there, and I used to joke with him because he'd always say when he was retired, he was going to go to his boat dock in Treasure Island, Florida. And I said, don't go to your boat dock. I'm not ready to go yet. I'm not going to the boat dock with you, right? But I called Zim on that Monday. Last game was Sunday. I called him on Monday, and I said, Zim, I think I'm going to be fired, right? And I think, man, I'm going to get these great words of wisdom from Don Zimmer. He goes, welcome to the club, pal. And that's what he said to me. He said, look, you'll get another job. Don't worry about it, But for me, there was a ton of anxiety. And I think so many of us, whatever we're doing, we put our heart and soul into it. And when it's taken away from us, there's a lot of healing that needs to take place. And without my wife, I would have never made it. I was offered 2 jobs for the 2008 season, 7th season, excuse me. She said, don't take them. I said, what? She said, don't take them. They're not the right jobs. I said, are you crazy? She goes, I said, I may never get another. She said, wait. And then 2008, I got the New York Yankees job. And we went back to Chicago and spent time with our parents. Her father was getting older. My father had Alzheimer's. And we spent time with our families. And I think we honored our family. And I think the true father honored us, me and my wife, by giving us the New York Yankee job. Because I never thought that was coming. I never thought Joe Torre would ever be fired. But as Zim said, you're hired to be fired, right? And I was fortunate, but I'm telling you what, for 6 months, I was a mess. For the Yankee job, it took about 3 years to get over it. That's how long it took me to mentally get over that I wasn't the New York Yankee, because I put my heart and soul in, I loved it. And we sacrifice so much when we do things, and I was like, it's gone, right? And I thought I'd never manage again. And then I got the Phillies job. And then I got fired there. So I've been fired 3 times, basically. And those are really hard times, but that's when you rely on your faith. Because my wife always says, God has a plan for you to prosper, right? And she was always right. She was always smarter than I was. Even in school, she was smarter than I was at Northwestern. But her faith was really important to the stability of our family and to me as a person. And now, I mean, it was hard for me to go back to Yankee Stadium. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to see people. I didn't want to go. And then I started going back. And here's the great thing about when you go back. People remember you better than you actually were. Right? And they always say, you need to come back. You need to, no, I'm good. I'm not aging as fast anymore. And I sleep much better now that I don't manage. And my hair has just kind of stayed gray. But without that faith, because my wife has a ton of wisdom, and she will share with me all the time in the Bible, it says women have infinite wisdom. She shares that with me all the time. She also says there's nowhere in the Bible where you see women cook. She shares a lot with me, by the way. She said it's always the men, right, going out and getting the... So, but she always says God has a plan for your life. And I don't think if I went through everything I did, I could have drew it up any better. And she's so right.
How about a round of applause for Kim?
Yeah.
Go, Kim. Let's talk about you starting with the Yankees as a manager in 2008. Okay, so you walk in, and there's a new stadium on the horizon, super high expectations for the team, a lot of big personalities, and the scrutiny of the New York media, which maybe you were used to, maybe not. And so here's how you leaned into this. You're like, I know, I'm going to wear number 27. My way of signaling I want to win the 27th World Series championship for the New York Yankees. And?
I stole that from Tony La Russa.
Oh, cool.
I played 1 year for the Cardinals. I was hurt most of the year. And that was the signal from the man upstairs. It was time to retire from playing. But he wore the next championship he was trying to achieve in St. Louis, and that was his number. And I stole that from him. And, it's interesting. We all think we know what it's like to be in a certain position, but you don't truly know what it's like until you get there. I had a year of managing under my belt, and I thought, I know what it's like to be the Yankee. I'll be fine. I'm telling you what, you find out you have to wear so many different hats that I never had to wear in Miami, and different things that you have to do and people you have to answer to. But it was so much fun. I mean, as an athlete, you love the intensity and the expectations of the fans because it motivates you. And you feed off those energy because there's so many days that you go to the ballpark, you are exhausted. And people don't think, well, your game is not you're not running. It's exhausting because it's mentally exhausting because we're always failing. And there were days like I wouldn't feel like I would wake up until the second inning to where I got a foul tip off my mask. I was like, oh, okay, I'm in this game tonight. But the pressure always came from within for me, and that's how I handled it because I never thought there was anyone who wanted to win worse than I did. So I was hard on myself. Like, if I made a decision that didn't work, I would go over and over and over it. But you got to understand, like, I'm nerdy. I mean, they talk about analytics today. I was called Binder Joe because I was always researching numbers and trying to come up with every advantage that we had, and every decision was extremely well thought out. I watched video every morning before the game. I had a routine, and I wanted to win. So I didn't feel pressure from anyone else. I felt pressure from myself to be the best that I could because I owed it to everybody. That was my job. And I always felt the responsibility of, and this is something I wish I was probably better at, the whole organization. Because, like, if I get fired, my coaches get fired, maybe the general manager gets fired, maybe his 3 assistants get fired, all of a sudden people start getting fired because we didn't win. And I took that really personal. So I worked really hard. And I think some people have asked me, like, you play golf? Nope. You fish? No. What do you do? I work out, and I love my family and my job. Those are my hobbies because, look, if you want to be great at something, and I'm pulling for this guy because he's going to Northwestern.
Yeah, go Andrew.
And the Gatorade Player of the Year, I'm pulling for you because my mom had 5 brothers who went to Notre Dame, right? If you want to be great at something, you have to give something up. And to me, the most important thing was being a great husband, a great father, and a great coach, not a great golfer, not a great fisherman, nothing else. I had enough on my plate, and I still live by that today.
Just going back to the number thing for one sec, though, because you won the World Series, the 27th, then the next year you turned to 28. And I heard you, when you were in 3rd grade, you wrote an essay about how you were going to play for the Cubs one day.
Correct.
So I'm just wondering, is like the secret to life to have these huge, bold projections that you wear so boldly on your back, like literally on your back? Like, is that...
Well,
Tell me about that
being in
audaciousness.
3rd grade, I think everyone probably in Peoria even either wrote they were going to play for the Cardinals or the Cubs, right? So, but I had a drive because I had a passion. And you know what? I learned that from my parents. My parents had a passion. Now, their passion was different than ours. My father's passion was to give us a better life than he had. And he worked his butt off, right? My mother's passion was to do the same, but also to help children. She was a child psychologist and tried to put kids in programs where they could be successful. So I learned a lot of lessons from them. So I don't know if I was being bold. It was just, I was trying to send signals to the players what the goal was. And that it's always about the goal, because no matter what in life, there is some selfishness to it because we want to provide for our families. So a lot of times we think of only ourselves. But it was a reminder for me every day that there was a team thing here. There was for the coaches and the general manager and every Mr. Steinbrenner for trusting in me. And I just felt like it was important. I love what Tony La Russa did. Tony La Russa was a brilliant manager, just brilliant. And I loved being around him, and I'm forever grateful because the one year that I played for St. Louis, and I was hurt most of the year, he would come to me after games and say, "Why do you think I did that?" And he says, "I'm just trying to teach you," because he knew I wanted to manage. So I'm forever grateful for that. But I don't think it's a boldness. I just think it's setting a goal. And I used to try to speak to the fans and speak to my players through the media. And I was never negative towards the players. I never criticized the players because, look, this is a hard game. It's a really, you're finding out this is a hard game, right? You're finding out it's going to get harder too because the competition gets better. And players know when they screw up. People know when they screw up. They don't need to be chastised and yelled at. The most important thing is to be an encourager in life, I believe. And I've always said that there's 2 things in life that we can't live without. And I got to tell you, you do a remarkable job in giving people food and water. But that's not what you're giving them that's most important. You're giving love and hope. Because I've always said, I would rather die physically than die mentally. And if you don't have that love and hope in your life, you are going to die mentally. And that's what you are giving these people, which I love. Like, I went over the other day, and they were explaining there was a shower, and we all take this for granted, right? And I started thinking, man, we all love after a long day to get in the shower and feel good, right? Feel clean. And I was thinking about the dignity that you're giving these people that have fallen on hard times, an opportunity to take a shower, to have new undergarments, and to feel good about themselves. And that is so important what you're doing. But I just think it's remarkable because without love and hope, we die. And that's what my mother taught me. She had the hope that she wanted to see this, this, and this. And the love for her children carried her 6 years.
Can't help but think how happy your mom would be that, like, we're all here tributing her.
Because they gave back.
Yeah.
My mother and my father always gave back. It was to a lot of different organizations, but it was also to cats and dogs, stray cats, stray dogs. We had a farm at our house, and we were not living on a farm.
Can we talk about your family real quick?
Yes.
So, as we said, you and Kim, 36 years. And I think we all have an awareness that it can be tough to do in professional sports. So, what is the thing that has kept you two growing together?
I think it's us just putting the other person first. Like, for me, I always believe that we were put on this earth to serve and love others. Too many people think that we're put on this earth to serve ourselves. It's not why we were put here. And that's what we try to do. We try to serve each other. We try to love each other. She knows when I'm down. I know when she's down, and I know what she needs. And it's just being there for each other. And I think that she did a remarkable job because she gave up her career. Like, when I tell you she was smart, she was cum laude. She graduated cum laude, went and got her master's. She taught school. But when I got drafted by the Colorado Rockies in the expansion draft, she knew that if she stayed, it wasn't going to work. She had to follow me. So she gave everything up, sacrificed everything in her life, her desire to work. Because my wife loves to work. She loves to work. She'd come back and volunteer every year in the off seasons. But she gave it all up to keep us together as husband and wife and as a family. And, we tried the 1 year of when I first came to New York, bringing the kids in June, July, and August, and then, not being there April, May, and September. We realized that didn't work, so we moved to New York. We knew the most important thing was to stay together as a family, and she knew that, and she did a remarkable job. And she would always say, home is where we're at. Because we lived in 10 different apartments, and I was in AAA, I was in the Winter Ball in Venezuela, I was in Winston-Salem, I was in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, the Yankees, the Cubs, the Rockies, the Cardinals, and it always fell on her to do everything, and she was great at it. And that's why we have such a strong marriage. And she really is the rock of our family, and anyone who thinks that the mom's not the rock is crazy, right? And I will tell you young men something, right? Don't give up, right? My wife wanted one date. We've been together 40 years now. It's one long date. Don't let them say no.
Man, so much more I want to talk about. Okay, going back to New Covenant Center, what made you say yes to being part of this evening and to coming and seeing what we're doing? By the way, you don't have to have a World Series ring to come for a tour. It's open to everyone. But what made you lean into being here tonight?
Well, I think that I talked about that we were put on this earth to help others. And I knew by coming, it would help others. And that's always been really important to my wife wherever we've been. We had our own charity for a fairly long time to help. My father died of Alzheimer's, cancer. We lost my mother. We lost her sister. Her sister was 47. She had 2 boys. Fertility. 2 of our kids are fertility. The other one is real. And then scholarships, right? Scholarships for kids that kind of fall through the cracks where they may not qualify for enough financial aid, but we didn't want to see kids have 30 and 40 and 50,000 debts when they got out of college. So we would help kids. So it was a mom and pop run store, her and I, but we've always thought it's important to give back. And by coming here, I feel like I have a chance to give back.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Any parting words for the people of Fairfield, Connecticut?
Well, I just think it's wonderful that you're here and that you care, right? And I think about, is some of the things that we take for granted, breakfast in the morning, coffee in the morning made for us, right? So many people don't have. And whatever you can give, it's wonderful because it makes a difference. I was in the pantry. Where's the young lady? Met
Linda,
you in
right
the pantry.
here.
Yes, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, the work that they're doing is incredible. And I think, you know, I've been really down on my luck at times, but I never faced the challenges that so many people have. And it's so encouraging to me that you're doing more, that you're giving people a plan and giving people hope that they can do it on their own. And that's dignity, right? When we feel like we accomplished something on our own, we feel really good. So it's more than just giving them a meal and a shower. It's giving them hope. And I appreciate everyone being here. I love that you want to give back and that you support this wonderful charity.
Thank you, Joe Girardi. Thank you so much.
Thank you.